Hi, this video is about Chapter 1, Communication, Perception, and Your Life. You can see by the overview, these are the items we're going to go through. Instead of me reading off the list, you can do that. And we are going to break each of these down throughout the chapter. After this chapter, make sure that you go back online on the Blackboard and complete the online quiz number 1 about Chapter 1. And you'll see all the directions on Blackboard of how to complete that. So let's get into this. What are the benefits of studying communication? Well, there's quite a few. One is it can improve the way others see you. Now, you're going to learn how to present yourself more clearly, confidently, and in ways that facilitate competency. Now, what that means is, as we can see in the picture here, well, we have, let's just call this a teacher, tutor, even a relationship. If you're trying to be understood, you need to speak clearly. You need to be confident about it. So, in other words, you need to know subject material. And the student and or person you're trying to communicate with needs to see that you are competent in it. So if you're seeing a math tutor and the math tutor is really good and they're making everything explained to you well, then they're communicating very well. Now in this picture you can see the power players here. They're pointing to what looks like architectural plans. They're probably trying to be very clear to these people who might be investors. They're going to provide millions of dollars in a new shopping mall or a shopping center or residential area. If they're not clear and confident and they don't sound competent about what they're talking about, they're not going to get the money. And again, just in a simple meeting, it could be even with friends about planning a wedding, planning a party. You need to be clear and confident about what you're talking about so everybody else agrees with you. Studying communication can make you more sensitive in your relationships. Now, if you're in a relationship now, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you're not, eventually you'll find out. But a relationship can be anything. It could be two friends. It could be a couple. It could be as parents. So here we have what looks like a father and, well, their grandkid maybe, or their son or daughter. We really don't know. But studying communication with this can help a lot. Instead of just blurting things out, you need to be sensitive to what people are feeling and what they're thinking. So when you can do that, you'll be able to communicate at a much higher level. This happens when we improve our listening skills. Now, later in another chapter, we're going to talk about the differences of hearing and learning, or hearing and listening, sorry, that hearing is one thing and listening is another, and we'll look at that later. So studying communication, it can teach you important thinking skills. Now, we think, how can thinking be improved through communication? Well, how you gather and evaluate evidence that may be useful presenting an argument or defending your own position on an issue makes you think more critically. So when you're up in front of the class giving a speech, you're going to be thinking about, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I shouldn't do this, I should do that. You're going to be more aware of what you think you want to do, or at least I hope you're thinking this way. When you go before a meeting or in a very important engagement, say with doctors talking about a very serious medical condition, we want to think about what we're going to say. Somebody might say, look, I only have 10 minutes. You need to ask me all the questions right now. What are they? You need to think about those ahead of time, especially if it's pre-planned. This is going to help a lot into getting you the right answers in certain circumstances. Studying communication can also help you learn how to resolve conflict in your life. If you've never had an argument, you have no clue what I'm talking about. Well, we've probably all been in debates, arguments, misunderstandings. By studying communication, we can learn how to de-escalate certain situations. We've all seen the movie where the person goes up to the airline seller of the tickets and they scream and yell at them, but I need to go here now, and I don't understand why you won't do this. And actually, it happens in the news all the time. Well, that's Hollywood. In real life, this actually happens. I've seen people going after receptionists, and it's not the receptionist's fault that their hotel room isn't ready yet. It's nothing to do with them. They offer to help and the person just wants to vent. Well, hopefully you're not that kind of person, but sometimes we can get through certain situations by talking calm, by talking more rational, and by understanding what the other person wants. So think about conflict in your life and how you go about handling that. Studying communication can also boost your confidence by helping you learn how to communicate across contexts. Now, what a context is, let's say you go into a hard hat construction site and you are, say, a computer analyst and you need to talk to these hard hat people about why their computer system isn't working, you kind of need to talk in your language and kind of need to talk in their language. You can't just tell them, look, you people have no clue what you're doing. Here's what you have to do. Probably not the best way to do that. Medical circumstances. This is a big thing. Some doctors and medically trained people will talk very high end. They talk in what I call Latin, basically medical terms. You don't have to know the medical terms, but you kind of need to communicate to them that I don't understand what you're talking about. Could you please break that down to my type of language so I can understand it? You can also have instances where you're just talking about public health and you're Skyping to as many people as you could fit on your computer. And they're all different levels, say from 12 years old to 52 years old. You need to be able to talk in a common language so you're not talking all what I call the tech talk. It's going to help you deal with all kinds of different people. Studying communication can encourage you to expand your comfort zone in communicating with others. If you've ever met somebody who is not like you, who's very different, say, oh, look at this. Here's two guys, probably from two different nations. Probably, and we can tell the one guy's from one area and the other guy's from another, but we really don't know that. But by looking at that, we can assume they're from somewhere, but that would be stereotyping, not a good or bad thing. But two different languages, two different cultures, two different backgrounds. We need to learn to feel comfortable talking to other people. Until you've been in that situation, you can say, wow, I can handle anything. I'm pretty cool about that. Well, then when you get there, all of a sudden you find yourself talking differently. You're a little more guarded in how you present yourself. Some people are very natural and just talk to anybody. Other people start to do the negative stereotyping and thinking, oh, they're that kind of person, therefore I should talk this way. Well, by studying communication, you can learn to not do that. And again, here we see a super duper diverse group of people. I mean, here's a lot of everybody. And in that group, they probably just talk like friends. Now, the more comfortable you are with people, and if you're an easygoing person, it's easier to communicate with them. You don't have to speak the same language. That's the fun part. You can actually get through things by just learning some basic skills in communicating with people. Eye contact, a smile, but it depends when and where too. Studying communication can help you succeed professionally. How many of you and or you want a job? Well, by communicating in a proper way in an interview, you might be able to present yourself in a way that gets you ahead of the rest of the other 499 people applying for the same job. In a job, you're going to also want to communicate to a boss like, hey, I've been doing really hard. Here's all the evidence why, and this is why I deserve a raise. Some people don't know that they're actually allowed to ask for a raise, but you need to be able to present it in a way that says, yes, you deserve that raise, or really, you're asking me for more money when I have no clue what you've done. So again, study these things. It really helps out. What is communication? Communication is the process of using messages to generate meaning. So let's break that down. Communication, it is a process. So think of a process. You put one foot in front of the other, you start walking. Communication is kind of the same thing because it consists of a series of actions, activities, or behaviors that we engage in to achieve our particular result. One is I want to say hi and make contact with somebody. So what's the first thing I do? Make eye contact. Second thing I do is say hi, maybe wave my hand, a little nonverbal communication. But think of communication as an active process. Communication is also concerned with generating shared meaning. Now, really important on shared meanings. Shared meanings means not just talking the same language, well, it does a little bit, but it means talking about the same thing. You ever get in that conversation where you're talking about two different things and you both look at each other after a little bit and go, wait, what are you talking about? I don't know. What are you talking about? Well, shared meaning is really critical in this. So word choices, if you are super techie and you're talking to somebody who is not, that's not a shared language. That's not good word choice. You need to think about that. Have you ever listened to somebody speak to you in a language that you understood but had no clue what they were talking about? Well, you'll get that in college, unfortunately. When you get into the higher classes, you may get into a class that's way beyond your capability because you thought you're ready for it, and you realize after the first class you didn't have a clue as to what they were saying. Now, there could be two things. One is you didn't read the book ahead of time. The other is you weren't really listening. You were only hearing what they were saying. We also need to look at people and watch what they're doing. Now, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm doing hand gestures, I'm smiling. If I had a video on, you can see my face of what was going on. It would add impact to the meaning. If I could see your face, the same thing. So when I make little boo-boos in this video, it's because I can't see you directly to go, wow, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Or, wow, they really get this. I may not say that out loud, but I can change the flow or direction of my word choices. So this is really important to watch people and listen to them. Communication is impacted by how people interpret messages differently. We can see this young guy will just, well, I hate to throw math under the bus, but he's in a math class and this teacher is talking really fast to the really good students who get the stuff, and it just isn't getting it. I've been there, maybe you've been there. We got to find out what's going on. Now, here she's looking at this box and she's on the cell phone. So maybe she got something from Amazon as a gift, and she is questioning, what in the world is this thing? Well, our best intentions aren't always interpreted correctly, so therefore proper communication is needed. Whether it's voice or written can add meaning to help people interpret what the message is. Communication also is contextually bound to a set of circumstances or a situation. In the military, for instance, we're just going to take this little thing. We'll call him a sergeant. He is talking to these folks here at a town hall meeting about why young people should go into the military. He needs to be able to talk to them in a way that they can relate to. In a family context, you would talk to children as children or talk to them as adults with extreme knowledge. Well, sometimes you do want to talk to children as adults, but you probably would change your word choice because they're kids. You don't want to be vulgar with children, not that you want to be vulgar with adults, but you would talk to them in a way that they can comprehend and understand in a simple way. So communication, it is a process of using messages to generate meaning. The components of communication, there's quite a few. Now, I don't want you to freak out and think, oh my gosh, this is going to be on the test. Well, some of it is. This is theory stuff. This is, as long as you have a basic understanding of this, you're going to do fine in this. Don't worry about the higher end understanding, but you need to know the basics. So one thing you do need to know is people. We are the source and we are the receiver in communication. We talk about human communication specifically. There has to be a source. Right now, I'm the source. I'm sending you a message through this video and audio production. You're the receiver. You're my intended target of the message. The message is I'm trying to make meaning with you by using common words that we understand. I'm also sending you a message. Now, I'm sending you a verbal message. You can't see the nonverbal that I'm doing. So if I'm holding my hands in a certain way, can you see it? No. So you're only going by the verbal, but that's the message right now. Now, in our first meeting on May 30th, you'll actually see me and we'll be able to do verbal and nonverbal. You'll see my face, you'll see my hands, you'll see my body posture. I will also see the same thing from you. You can try to have that poker face and not see anything. I pick up on little cues, as I'm sure you do too. You just may not be aware of it. Some people are really good at nonverbal cues. Others need a little bit of work, just a little more understanding of it. Now, the channel. Channels are how the message gets through you. Now, right now, I'm assuming you're on Blackboard, and I'm assuming you're watching the video, or obviously you won't be hearing this. That is the channel. So the channel is the internet through sound waves, through copper wires, glass fibers, and here it is. Now, we're not face-to-face yet, but in a face-to-face situation, it's the voice that's the channel. That's how the message, I'm trying to point at the screen, I need to do this for you. This is how the message gets through the channel. Now, in the feedback, this is where we know somebody is listening, not just hearing. So even though there's no response, now this guy could be listening to a webcast. Well, he's not responding. You may be doing the same thing. Maybe you're sitting back, you get your feet up on the desk. That's okay. Now in class, don't do that. But you can look bored in class. That's okay. I'll make you smile eventually. The feedback is important. When somebody is talking with you and not just to you or at you, it's really important to show some response. Eye contact is generally something that human beings do. We look at each other. Now, you can look at the camera, I can look at the camera, we're not seeing each other, but you're looking at the screen. So therefore, I'm guessing there's feedback. And if you've watched the video so far, the feedback is that I'll be able to see is that you took the quiz and passed the quiz, which you're going to do anyhow. So that could be feedback from me. Now, coding and encoding and decoding. Coding is my brain decides I want to say a word. So I have to take a breath in and I expel and it goes through the microphone and it goes through your speakers and into your ears and into your brain. Okay, that's all the channel, the feedback, the message, and all that stuff. But the code is I want the message, and it has to be a verbal message because I can't use my nonverbal today. I then have to encode it. And this is a way of how I want to think of words so you can understand it. Okay, so I'm coding and encoding. The decoding is where you understand the message. Now, if I made this clear, I've encoded the words into a code, which are the words. It comes across verbal, and you decode the words. So it's a pretty simple thing. Hopefully I didn't make that too complicated. Now noise. Noise could be in your head right now. He goes, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. That's psychological noise. Not just noise. So if I'm clapping and talking at the same time, you hear clapping. Is it distracting you from my words? Or if I'm quiet, listen to the noise in your head. What's going on inside your head? You're going, oh my God, this guy's crazy. Or, wow, I'm hungry. My stomach's gurgling. I want to go eat. Or maybe I should hit pause and go do this. Oh, geez, I forgot. I got to go cut the grass. Or did I roll my windows up and it's raining outside? That's noise. That's psychological noise. Physical noise would be if you're sitting in an uncomfortable way, hey, get comfortable. Go sit on the couch. Don't sit at the kitchen chair if that's where you're at. If you're walking around with your headphones on right now, with your phone and you're walking and you're comfortable, you feel your feet walking. It's everything that's going on. It's what we see, what we do, what we feel. There are three models of communication. The first one, this is the source. This is where I encode my words. This is my thoughts coming out of my mouth, going through a channel or with the message, and this is going through the internet, through the video, into your ears, into your brain. You are now the receiver. You have to decode it. So this is a straight action model of communication. This is a really good example of what we're doing right now. The next model is the interaction model. The interaction model is where I'm still the source. I encode the words. I send it through the channel. The message are the words that I'm saying right now. And I'm showing you also, technically, I guess you call it nonverbal, the little arrow and the yellow circle where I'm trying to get your eyes to look at. You're the receiver. You're decoding my words. You're seeing the circle. And you're also looking at the arrow because now you would be the source if you were responding back to me. So you would encode your words, send it through the channel, and this also would be feedback too at the same time since I originated it. I'm then the receiver. So if you actually sent me back an email, the message would be, I got it, I understand it, or I don't understand it. The channel would be through email, and I would do that. And then we would go round and round and round. So there'd be feedback after that. The next one is the transaction model. Now, this is better when we're face to face right now. This is an ongoing conversation in where we're just talking. We're saying, hey, how are you today? I'm great. How are you doing? Oh, I'm feeling so-so. You know, I got a little wet because it rained on me today. And I'm kind of sticky and I really don't want to be here. I want to go home and change clothes and be dry and comfortable and get a snack, take a nap, and maybe wake up and go do something else. That would be a conversation. And again, it follows the same thing. There's still a source. There's still the message of the channel. And it goes around and around and around. Perception affects communication big time. Let's look at these. So perception. Now, you see this gal. She's smelling an orange. I think maybe a grapefruit, but an orange. Can you smell that orange or grapefruit too? How about if you're up really high? Can you feel what it's like to be up very, very high, that vertigo, if you get vertigo? That's perception. So perception, we decide to select something. It refers to the decisions we make to focus on a stimuli, whether it's just sight, sound, smell, or other sensations, and we ignore other things or neglect other things. So if I say, close your eyes and imagine smelling an orange, can you smell the orange? Organization. This is how we group certain stimuli into meaningful units. There's closure, proximity, and similarity. You can read on the screen faster than I can say it. But closure is when we fill in missing details. So even though you don't have that orange in your hand, or maybe you have one in the kitchen, let's just say you have no orange in your hand. Just imagine smelling what it is. So you're closing that information gap. Your brain already should know what an orange smells like. Now you can imagine it. So we'll call closure kind of similar to imagination. Proximity is perceiving things, how they're related to us in physical closeness. So if you have an orange sitting in the kitchen, or it's even at the grocery store, you're far away from it or close to it, but you can still see it or imagine it and fill in the gaps on that. The similarity occurs when we group objects together because they share attributes. So if you see something orange, look around where you are. If you see anything orange, does it make you think of an orange that you can eat? Well, maybe not. But now that I'm talking about an orange, the next time you see orange, pay attention to what you're thinking. You might think, oh wow, I'm thinking of an orange. How silly. These things happen. This is how we perceive things. The interpretation is the assignment of meaning to a stimuli. Let's say you had a bad experience the last time you peeled an orange and the juice sprayed into your eye when you tried to pop the skin off. So every time you see an orange, you might get a little twitch in your eye of that pain of the juice squirting into your eye. Again, it's perception. There's active perceptions that our mind decides to select, organize, and interpret things, what one senses, in a consistent way. These things just happen. Subjective perceptions. This is a process where a person's current inner state of how you feel right now impacts the meaning attached to the sensed stimuli. So in other words, you have the orange. How does it impact you? How do you perceive it? Again, pretty complex looking chart for just how we perceive things. There are differences in perceptions based on physiological features such as our sex, our height, our weight, our body type, our acuity of the senses. Now, I'm not very tall. When you meet me, you go, oh yeah, he's not very tall. So my height impacts how I see things. I may look up at things, and if you're very tall, taller than I am, you might look down at things. The sex, same thing. We each feel differently about our own bodies and how we carry ourselves and what our confidence level is. Our weight. If you're overweight, if you're underweight, if you're a comfortable weight, if you don't care about weight, it can impact things. I like to stand when I talk. Right now I'm standing doing the video. You'll see when I'm teaching, I don't sit, I don't lean. I stand. I feel my feet. So my weight matters. If I'm 50 pounds overweight, my feet are going to hurt. But luckily I'm not, as you shall see. But I feel pretty comfortable on my feet. Our body type matters too. Some of us are built very differently. Sometimes some of us sit better, sometimes some of us stand better. You can see here, you got young, and I'm not quite sure how old they are, but a swimmer, and they got some cool thing on. But here's an older person who's overweight. They're going to feel things differently. The acuity of the senses. Sometimes our skin, it's a very keen way to interpret the world. Watch little kids, they touch everything. Maybe now we touch everything. We go, oh, look at this, and we touch. That's how we perceive it. Some of us have really good touch sensitivity. Others, we don't feel things so good. So these things do matter. If you're hot or you're cold, some people might say, you're cold, I'm really hot. They're sweating and you're freezing. Again, it depends on who we are and what we're going through. This is how we have differences of perceptions. Past experiences tell us how to perceive things. If you've had a good experience with, say, well, they're using police officer. If you had a good experience with a cop when you were a kid, chances are that is still going on. If you had a bad experience with a cop, then maybe when you see cops and authority figures, you perceive them differently. But perception is definitely based on our experiences as human beings. Our roles in life determine how we perceive things differently too. Think about a job. If you're working right now, does your boss perceive things the way you do? Or do you perceive things the way the boss does? When people say, try walking a mile in their shoes, that's a different perception. That's a different role we have. If somebody wears high heels, I do not wear high heels. Well, I used to in high school, but they were guy high heels. Platforms. Perception was very different. The rules are different. I would not run a mile in women's high heel shoes. I would break my ankles. Therefore, I can't appreciate what that's even like. But again, think about authority figures. Me as the teacher, I stand in front of the classroom. You as a student sit in a chair. I know what your role's like because I've been where you are. I have 2 master's degrees, a college degree, took countless classes. I know what it's like to sit there and have to listen and watch videos like this and or take notes. So I know what your role is. If you've never taught, it's hard for you to perceive what I perceive as a teacher. So that's one of those fun things in life of trying to figure out the differences in perceptions. Your present feelings determine everything about perception. If you're in a really good mood right now, Everything's good. You perceive the world as a happy place, as a fun place. If you're not feeling good right now, maybe you're sick, maybe you're hungry, you don't feel good, maybe you woke up last night because of the rain, whatever it is, you just don't want to do anything and your perception changes. So think about your moods. When you're in a good mood, you perceive things good. When you're in a bad mood, your perception generally is negative. And you can correct me on that later, but think about that for yourself. That's a lifetime homework assignment, by the way, too. Pay attention to how you perceive things when you're in different moods and how you feel. Be more aware of that. There are errors in perceptions. Perception checking. Describing a behavior is very important to the other person when you're observing their behavior. You got to look at nonverbal and verbal cues. If somebody comes up yelling to you, you blah, 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 well, generally they're probably going to be coming on very aggressive. Their body posture is going to be, oh my gosh, am I going to get attacked now or not? You need to look at that. You need to be able to describe that behavior. You need to also seek verification of these people. You got to ask the individual, wait, are you mad at me or are you just angry at something else? It was something I did or is it something that happened to you? Have you ever been in traffic and been really frustrated by that traffic? Hopefully you're not watching this while you're driving. But then you go home and you take out your aggression on somebody. You go, oh my God, this is blah, 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 blah. And you just go off on them. Well, they might think you're attacking them when you're just venting. So ask for verification. You can always do that when the other person is aggressive with you. Suggest interpretation. Identify plausible interpretations for the behavior. Somebody comes in yelling, oh my gosh, just the worst day ever, blah, 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 the boss this and the traffic that, blah, blah, blah. So really, you're not really mad at me, right? You're just mad at your day? Yes. Wow. That can also de-escalate what is going on. So this is very good. But some people interpret the aggression of, the day was really bad, the boss did this, as you're mad at them. Always ask for that. And be careful too how you respond to people. Start being aware of your responses and other people's responses, even people you don't know. Pay attention to what's going on. Start learning by experiencing different things. When it comes to self-image and communication, there are three things that we need to keep in mind. How you see yourself absolutely impacts the way you communicate with other people in your life. But always remember this. Communication should always begin with the self. It begins with you if you're having a conversation. Or in the dialogic process, now let me break dialogic process down for you. It's basically about dialogue. It's about how we talk to each other, not tweeting, not Snapchatting, not emailing, not texting, not whatever, drawing on the wall. It's how we talk to each other. So I'm in a dialogic process with you right now, even though we're in an asynchronous mode, which means that you're hearing this at a different time than I'm actually saying it. We'll get to that in a future chapter 2. When it comes to interpersonal communication, think about what's going on in your own head first, as it says on the screen, in your own mind. So what is in your head is going to come out through your mouth into somebody else's ears, into their brain, and they're going to respond to you one way, shape, or form. And we won't even discuss those potentials. There's myriads of ways, tons and tons of variations. But consider what you're thinking first. What kind of discussion you're in. Is it problem solving, decision making, just chit chat? What's the weather like today? What are you doing after class? I don't feel good. How you feeling? All kinds of things like that. So that's interpersonal communication. When presenting ourselves to others, people engage in both high and low levels of identity management. So who am I? Who are you? And how are we talking to each other? When you're talking to your best friend or a very close friend, it's a lot different than if you meet a stranger. When we actually meet as student and teacher, or for me, I'm teacher to student, I think about you as the student and how I have to respond to you to make sure that you respond properly back to me. Now, I don't know you yet, but we're going to get to know each other. So in a few weeks, you're going to be surprised how I respond to you and ask you questions. It's not just this average median of comment. It's specifically towards you. Now, keeping in mind there's anywhere from 7 to 10 people in our class, each one of you is individually unique. At this moment, you are the only individual I'm speaking to because you are the only other one on the end of my speakers from my microphone. So this is in my mind. I'm not speaking to 50 people at once. I'm speaking to you, the one person at a time. Keep in mind, high levels of identity management result in more beforehand consideration of how we talk to other people or of how information might be interpreted by others. If you are the employee talking to your boss, say, yo, dude, what's happening, man? How come you're not doing your job? That might not go over too well unless your boss is a really cool person. So you need to think about that. Low levels of identity management result in more acting and communicating before thinking. So when you act before you think, and you might have heard this back when you were in grade school, hopefully not after middle school, and absolutely, hopefully not in college. Don't act first, think first. The same thing with speaking. Be careful what comes out from your lips. Use your mind, think of who you are, think of who the person is that you're communicating to, and think of how they're going to react back to you once they hear what you have to say. That's it for Chapter 1. Make sure you go back on Blackboard right now and take the online quiz number 1. Remember, you're going to have 3 attempts at it. It is the highest score that counts. So if you get a 6 and you try it again and you get a 4, that probably means you weren't paying attention or read the book. And then you get a 9, the 9 counts. So don't worry about the 2 other lower grades. Pretty simple to do. If you're not sure how to do that, you can always check Blackboard instructions. Other than that, I will see you in class.